Well, good morning, everybody. Again, welcome back. We are starting our second breakout session on the session 2A, and now we are getting to hear about from several railroad shippers. Sorry, we're starting a couple of minutes late. We ran into first set of little technical difficulties, but we should be all good now. So yet again, before I turn this over to Shasta, who's gonna be our moderator for this session, quick holler to our sponsors, our Diamond and Platinum sponsors who are helping us to keep the conference affordable for everyone. And thanks for Shasta and speakers as well. So I'm gonna turn this over to you, Shasta, and I'm gonna try to go and find our last speaker.
Very good. Thank you so much, Fozzie. We appreciate it. So welcome everyone to the Shippers panel on this year's session of Year of Rail Platform for Change. We've got a really good lineup here. I want to start off, we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start off with Keith Baker. Keith Baker is the city manager for the city of Coldwater here in Michigan. You guys should have been able to see his bio. If not, we'll make sure to get that out to you. But Keith, we're going to go ahead and pass it over to you. Actually, really quick, I apologize. If you guys have questions, just like the last sessions, please put your questions in the Q&A session. Once we get through all of the speakers, I'll be happy to go through those and I will ask those questions and we'll try to get those answered for you. So Keith, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to share a screen, which I'm not very familiar with doing.
And we can see your screen, Keith.
Okay, let me try that again. It worked yesterday, so.
Oh, we just had it up. It just went away. So if you want to go back and just share your screen again. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, so you can see that then?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is a first time for me being a presenter to the Michigan Rail Conference. I'm a city manager by trade and a planner by education, so railroading is relatively new to me. I inherited a 10.1 mile section of railroad, is taking on the responsibilities of the city of Coldwater. That section of railroad is identified as the branch in St. Joseph County's Rail Users Association. And we operate on that. We are the end of that line. And so then can you see my second slide?
Yes, we can see that, Keith. If you wouldn't mind, up at the top left, where it says from beginning, if you wouldn't mind to click that, that should put it in presentation mode for us.
There we go. Okay.
There you go. Perfect. Yep. Now we're on. We see your first screen. So.
Okay. Thank you. So the branch in St. Joseph County's Rail Users Association. It's a 10.1 mile corridor. It's administered by a 5-member board of directors. A little background, I didn't prepare a separate slide on some of the history, but in the mid-1980s, this section of rail line was scheduled to be abandoned, and a consortium of the city of Coldwater and a number of industrial users within the branch in St. Joseph County's area combined to purchase. They first applied for an MDOT grant, and that helped facilitate the purchase as well back in the 80s of this 10.1 mile corridor. And a board was established, including those that contributed to the purchase of that rail line. And that included the city of Coldwater, and a number of industries. 4 local industries are currently board members, in addition to the city of Coldwater, on the administration of this Rail Users Association. It's a unique scenario in which to operate under. And we currently provide service to a number of industries, the majority of which are Sekisui Voltec, which is Japanese auto parts manufacturer. They produce foam for various auto manufacturing uses in headliners and doors and so forth. Cirrus Solutions, they ship grain and fertilizer in and out of what is an otherwise relatively agricultural area, Branch County, St. Joseph County, Steuben County in Indiana, Hillsdale County. So we're very much an agricultural area. Darling Ingredients, we have a animal rendering facility that ships a lot of tallow, which has only been increased recently by the location of a large pork processing facility to our community about 4 years ago. And so that's contributing to an increase in traffic to Darling Ingredients, which we're appreciative for. And the Andersons, just a recent addition, is the shipping of corn oil from a intermodal location here in Coldwater out to the south. So currently we have about 600 to 700 cars per year, and that was kind of pre-COVID, but we're getting back up to that. Our operators on the line, the ones that actually do the shipping, include Indiana Northeastern Railroad. As on their route map there, you see we're the very end of the line there in the center top of that map where it says Coldwater off of I-69. So we're at the end of their line, but it provides a real economic development benefit to our community to have freight rail access. And we utilize that quite frequently when we are marketing and recruiting for new industrial development in particular to the area. One thing I didn't note on the history too is we had a large scale project as part of the 1990s to include a spur to Darling Ingredients, but have not since then made much investment in that 10-mile line for the subsequent 2 decades. And then upon my taking the position in 2016, we really attempted to kind of reinitialize this railroad corridor. We've engaged in legal representation, new engineering representation, getting the industries to provide member representation on the board, which at one point was essentially just meeting once a month to handle an annual meeting, but very little activity was taking place. And Indiana Northeastern, as our operator, is kind of just operating without any other participation from the organization in which they operated from. So we've really tied that in with new bylaws, new permitting processes, and tried to take it into the 20th, if not the 21st century for administration of this area. The second operator on our railroad is the Little River Railroad. It's a tourist excursion train that operates on all of the various holidays. We have our own version of the Polar Express in the winter, and they operate on the weekends as well, fall color tours and those type of things. And so you see kind of a couple examples of their engines that they operate, and the historic depot and behind that's located here in Coldwater that they operate from. They serve about 6,000 to 7,000 passengers per year. So that's a unique tourist and economic development draw to our community to have that available. So having not invested in the line for a couple decades, we just within the last year have begun the process and been awarded, though we haven't gotten through the full award process, and we still have an agreement to get in place, but we are participating in the Michigan Department of Transportation Freight Economic Development Program, and we're doing a grant project through that program, a $1.2 million corridor improvement project, similar to one of the projects that was discussed in a previous presentation by Lake State Railroad for our 10-mile section of railroad. The grant itself covers about $625,000, and with the with the city and the railroad, Indiana Northeastern, pledging the other 50%. With the idea that this work would begin next spring and be completed next year. So we're really looking forward to that. There again, the goal of that project, as was the case in the other example, was to increase the car weight limit from 268,000 pounds to 286,000 pounds, because we're currently limited to our shippers and our customers are limited in what kind of cars can be delivered based on the condition of our rail line. So the rail, as I noted, the Rail Users Association was created to maintain a commercial freight service to the industries in Branch and St. Joseph counties, ultimately to help maintain the extension which leads to the east to a rail line that is actually owned by MDOT further to the east of us. The extension to the west of the city of Coldwater into St. Joseph County was abandoned and rails were sold off about a decade ago to help complete the first major maintenance project on the line. We have from what I understand, we have a pretty unique governance model. This is essentially a publicly owned a rail line or a public-private partnership, as suggested in there again in one of the questions from the previous presentation. So this is unique in that both a public entity, the city of Coldwater, and its local partners, the various industries that are served by the rail, oversee the maintenance and administration of the line. At the time, currently, we have no formal long-term funding model in place, so that's something that we're working on currently. And as this board has been re-engaged and progress has been made over the past 5 years, as I noted, to try to bring ourselves into the modern era of administering this rail line and maintaining this economic development amenity that we have, both for our current clients or customers and future ones that we want to recruit to the area. And our challenge is then sustainable funding and getting the line upgraded so that we can take those larger, heavier cars, which now are presenting an impediment to future growth. So with that, I think I've reached nearly my 10 minutes, and just an example of another way in which to conduct freight rail in Michigan. And this is my contact information if anyone had any questions or interest as to how we do what we do here in Branch County in the city of Coldwater.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Keith. That was a very good presentation. I certainly have some questions on my side of things. So again, for those that are attending, that Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen, if you wouldn't mind to put any questions that you have in for Keith or the other speakers, I will receive those and I'll be happy to share those whenever we get done with all of the presentations. With that being said, next we have Chris Wheeler. Chris is with the Andersons and he is a profit center manager. For some reason, I was want to say profit city manager, so I apologize, but profit center manager. Chris, go ahead.
All right, one moment here. I'll get my presentation up. Okay, does that show up for everybody?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, again, my name is Chris Weiler with the Andersons, based out of Maumee, Ohio. I'm going to start and kind of give an overview of what our company is and what we do, and then talk about some of the changes we've seen over the last 3 to 5 years, and in addition to the last 1 or 2 years. So we're based in Maumee, Ohio, but we have a presence in most of the United States. Our company is made up of 3 groups mainly: trade and processing, which includes all of our grain handling assets, trading businesses, feed businesses, and ethanol processing businesses. Plant nutrient, which includes both fertilizer production and wholesale, as well as farm centers that directly serve growers in a lot of our, in much of the United States, as well as our rail businesses, which owns and manages a fleet of 22,000 cars, and runs a repair business, which has shops all over the United States. So on my side of the business in Michigan, we originate corn, soybeans, and wheat from producers and commercial customers. And then we store that in elevators and ship to end users in, for food, feed, and fuel purposes with rail, truck, or vessel. Our business is in Michigan is, my business that I directly oversee is in the central part of the state, is in part of the Saginaw Valley. We have an ethanol plant in Albion, Michigan, as well as 2 NS rail loaders in southern Michigan, and an export facility in Toledo, Ohio, which handles a lot of Michigan production. Several of our Ohio and southern Michigan assets are located on NS mainline or NS served. Our central Michigan assets are short line served and can interchange to the CSX, the CN, or the NS. Interestingly enough, our Toledo asset can, a lot of Michigan production will move via the short line to them. So there are times that we'll ship soybeans at harvest, or in this case, a lot of wheat is moving from central Michigan elevators down to Toledo. And as Keith mentioned, at our Albion ethanol plant, we transload a lot of our corn oil from truck to rail cars. We also ship a lot of ethanol and dried distillers grains, one of the co-products of ethanol production, on rail as well to various customers. This is an example of one of our elevators in Standish, Michigan, which was built in 2013. This is our newest elevator in our group. We've got about, these big bins hold about 750,000 bushels of grain, and we ship typically in 90-car CSX trains. So in the last 5 years, the big change we've seen in our business in central Michigan is a lot of the domestic, our primary market for corn is into the southeast chicken and hog feeders. Most of that is going via the CSX from our short line partners that help kind of bridge the gap between our elevators and the main line. A lot of the focus from the main lines has been increased efficiency. So they started what they call an express loading program. The idea is when they have a 90-car train heading towards us to load corn, we've got between 24 and 36 hours from when the train hits the short line, which then gets it up to our elevators to load the train. Typically, if we have no issues with breakdowns or any kind of labor issues or quality issues, we can load a train in 10 to 14 hours. This requires a lot of coordination with our crews if it shows up at midnight, we have to load at midnight. And with our short line partners, who a lot of times provide power to help us load the train. With that, there's been less of an interest from the main lines to load less than unit train quantities domestically. So changes we made in our business over the last few years since I've been involved in that business, we've upgraded our facilities, one, to be able to load faster. We have to load 7 to 9 cars an hour to meet pace, to meet these terms with the CSX. And we've had to have more staff, more trained staff between our plants. So if we have our entire crew at one plant working into the evenings and going past their max hours, then we have to bring in folks from other elevators to help run the plant to service customers during our normal grain receiving times during the day. With that also, we're constantly focused on safety and increasing our safety awareness. Long hours get tiring for employees. That's constantly, we never sit on our hands when it comes to safety. That's been a big focus for us. Now with that, most of our grain was being exported out of state. Michigan is typically a net exporter of grain. Was typically going to Southeast, either to chicken and hog feeders, as I mentioned, or to soybean crush plants in the Southeast. So in 2019, we had a few things happen. Zealand Farm Services put a plant in Ithaca, Michigan. That changed the flows of soybeans drastically. We were now using almost half of our Michigan soybean production in state. We also had a short crop. So Michigan had, in that case, went from a net exporter to having enough space to store most of the grain produced in state. So harvest shipments were down. And then more in-state usage with the new crush plant and increased feed usage. So we actually saw a big decrease in rail shipments. 2020, COVID happened. So just like the rest of the industry, we had a lot of new protocols with our crews, for loading trains and running our plants, as well as, trying to keep and have the definite risk of whole plants being quarantined if we have a whole crew out and we have a train come in, we can't load it. With that, we've put a lot of focus on cross training between plants. So if we have a crew to go down, we have folks that know how to run it. 2021, we finally had more of a normal crop in the state. Interestingly enough, we've had areas outside the state that needed to import a lot of corn. So while we put all this work and focus and with our short line partners and our elevators to meet express loading terms, we found the market for Michigan tended to shift from these main line express moves to single car moves in 3 to 5 car blocks, 25 car blocks to new customers via the short lines. So for our business, a big change for us and where we've been able to hit some singles and home runs is, we try to be nimble on the rail side to be able to send grain to where it wants to go. For us, that's a huge advantage being on a short line. A lot of the main line, as I mentioned earlier, they're focused on express trains and moving those big pieces of freight as quick as they can. So we've been able to find a lot of new customers to, and have advantages where we're located. We've had a lot of the same struggles with the rest of the industry, I'm sure has been seeing. So a lot of issue, trouble with hiring and retaining talent. There's a lot, we've done a lot of work in looking at our pay structures to make sure we're competitive in the marketplace, as well as, like I said, cross training between plants. So I think in the rail side, we've seen, I've heard on a lot of the short lines and main lines, especially, they have trouble getting people who want to work. And there's some pretty good jobs out there that they've got a lag on getting talent for. That's kind of the, hopefully quick enough there. That's kind of the gist of what we're seeing from my side of the business. If you want to learn more about what I've had to say today or learn more about our business, you can visit our website or my contact info is available.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate that. So again, just a reminder to all of those participating, if you have questions, make sure you're putting those down in the Q&A section. Next, we are going to have our speaker from Arauco join us. I'm going to actually share his screen for him. He's joining over the phone. So give me just a second while I get that one pulled up here. All right. Can everyone see the presentation? I guess nobody can respond to me other than the boards.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that confirmation. All right, Mr. Belger, can we go ahead and get you started? I've got your presentation up.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so welcome everybody and thanks for having me, Shasta. I appreciate the opportunity. So I'll tell everybody a little bit about Arauco. So this was the first greenfield particle board mill startup in the U.S. since 2001. We began construction in 2018 and commercial operations started in February 2019. And even though Grayling, Michigan doesn't seem like the hot spot for transportation, there were a lot of reasons why we decided to build a mill here. Our mill is on a 640-acre parcel here, which we only use about 110 acres of it. The rest is and will remain forested throughout the life of the mill here. It was a $550 million project, so it's a large investment into northern Michigan. And when we look at it, why Grayling? So we have a huge abundance of underutilized wood in the area. And for everybody on the call, we use parts of the forest that most loggers leave out in the woods. So we use the parts that are too small for other production, and we will consume those and mill it into products that we want. In the local community really stepped up and supported us as we build our facility here in Grayling. We actually work in conjunction with the local college and have developed apprenticeship programs, training programs, and they now have courses structured around the wood industry. Since in Grayling we have OSB mills, we have particle board mills, we have resin mills. So the wood industry is what it's all about in northern Michigan. A little bit about our facility. We have the largest continuous press in North America at 170 foot long and 10 foot wide. But unlike other mills, we can make product that's 8 and 9 foot wide at the same time. Just to give you an example, we make about 800,000 cubic meters of board every week, which that equates to roughly 600 truckloads a week when we're at full capacity leaving this facility each and every week. And as I get further into the presentation, I'll kind of explain more how the rail line is going to be so pivotal in our growth potential. So we make raw particle board here, not OSB. We make particle board, but we also have two value added lines, and the mill was intentionally designed to have a third thermally fused laminate line, or TFL as we call it here. When people say, what is TFL? TFL is the decorative finish that you see on most products, office furniture, which is some of our biggest markets. Ready to assemble furniture like IKEA, Ashley Furniture, the kitchen cabinets, master brand cabinets, and recreational vehicles. We see our product out in the marketplace day in, day out, but we don't typically know where that product comes from. So we will make product panel thickness anywhere from 6 millimeter, which is a little over 1/8 of an inch, all the way up to 1.5 inch door core on the hollow core door. All right, next slide, Shasta, please. All right, so today, as Chris mentioned on there, our emphasis on safety. We have to understand that our labor force in northern Michigan is not extremely familiar with heavy industrial manufacturing facilities. So we put a ton of emphasis day in, day out about safety. Safety is everything here. We have heavy equipment. We have very large machines that individuals work on day in, day out. Speed and efficiency. Even though we started in 2018, commercial production in 2019 is 2.5 years, we still are in the startup phase. We won't be out of the startup phase for probably another 2 to 3 years. So we continue to work in an ever-changing environment. And because of our turnover, as Chris mentioned, training and development is key for our staff. We have training classes almost weekly where we are going over different aspects of the business. Individuals joining our organization aren't from the forest industry. They're not used to making particle board. So we have to invest in our future. We have to invest in our people. And because we're a new mill and we're still working to work out the bugs, we're looking at enhancing product quality to meet our customers' expectations, which change daily, weekly. So we're trying to be flexible in the market, even though we have a core product that we sell. If our customer comes to us and says, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Yes, we will definitely look at it and see if we can't meet their expectations. Right now, our like most industries, our challenge is COVID. Where are we at? Northern Michigan, for the past couple months, we've been pretty good. We've relaxed our COVID restrictions, and now we're seeing those restrictions being taken back, where our cases in northern Michigan are on the rise again. So we're kind of addressing that. Staffing's huge. We are no different than anybody else. We are always looking for people day in, day out. It's a challenge. We have a very unique schedule for our workforce. Essentially, our employees work 12-hour shifts, 2 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 2 days off. It's essentially works out that they get 14 days off a week, or a month, I'm sorry. So it is a unique schedule. They'll work 2 weeks on days, then they go to nights for 2 weeks. So it takes a unique individual to be able to handle the schedule, but essentially you're only working half a month every month. As I mentioned earlier, we have 600 truckloads come out of the mill a week. Specialty transportation, B trains, heavy haul equipment, because our product is very heavy, dense and heavy. We struggle with transportation. So, we do have customers that are 100% truckload customers, but right now our rail capacity has creeped up significantly and will continue to do that. Right now we're on pace. We do about 70 to 75 loads a month coming out of Grayling, and that will increase. So our future, as I mentioned earlier, identify, hire, and train additional staff to meet our needs. That I don't see that going away in the immediate future. But our biggest challenge is decreasing the number of days from production to delivery. So Grayling's strategically located to our customer base. Roughly 35 to 40% of our customers are within 500 miles of Grayling. So what we do, we're a make-to-order company. So if a customer orders the product today, it will be to them within 7 days. We need to decrease that footprint. So we need to enhance our transportation structure. Because we're such a new company in a new facility here in the area, we're growing. We're trying to find carrier capacity. We're trying to find employees. We're in a growth pattern. We will continue to be in a growth pattern for some time. Optimize transportation mode to meet our customers' demands. When we look at our customer base, we have a lot of customers, as I mentioned earlier, that can only do truckload. They are looking at rail. I've worked with Lake State extensively trying to grow our pool of cars. We are identifying things about ourselves that we didn't even know a year ago would be needed today. Our rail car volume, we have a limited pool right now. Lake State does a great job of getting us additional capacity as we need it, but we need to grow that capacity. And with their support and their weekly help, we're growing our operation. So that's my presentation overview. If you have questions or want to know more about Arauco, you can go to arauco.com. We have facilities. We have 11 facilities in North America, and we have 8 facilities in Central America. So we have a large footprint, and we share, industry knowledge. And again, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thank you very much, John. I appreciate that. All right, we're going to move right into the Q&A session. So I've got a few questions that have came in. Again, if you have any questions, please send those in. I'll see those and try to read those off if we have enough time. So one of the first questions that I have is for you, Chris, at the Andersons. The question is what is the outlook for current Michigan crop?
The Michigan crop is so from a corn standpoint, we've taken our projections up probably 10 to 15 bushels an acre on average. I think the Michigan average is, I think we're in the 160s. I have more exact numbers on this somewhere, but we're probably going to be in that 300, and we're going to be well north of 300 million bushels of corn produced. At Michigan's peak, we were producing around 350 million. So we got a chance to get into the 320s potentially, which is big. Soybeans, again, acres were up a little bit this year, probably about 100,000 acres. But with some of the wet weather we've had, I brought yield down a few bushels an acre. I think it's going to be offset by increased acres. So I still think production is going to be around 100 million bushels, which is pretty close to what we did last year. And then the wheat crop was fantastic.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. The next question, this looks to be maybe a general question. So if anybody has comments, I'd ask for you to share those. So the question is, have you seen your trade lanes change as a result of COVID in a Trump trade agreement? Do you load containers, and can you talk about how you source those containers? So I personally don't know anybody on this particular panel that does any container loading, but if you guys know of any, or you do have a location that you do that, or if you're interested, it would be really great to hear your thoughts and opinions on both of those items.
We haven't loaded a lot of container. In my group, we've looked at adding container loading capacity. We do sell some soybeans into the Dearborn market. That does go out on as a container loading market. I think some of the issues we've had in that business with our containers business, which operates I think more out of South Columbus and Lockbourne on the East Coast, and I believe some out of Chicago. There's been a lack of containers available, but in our market, it hasn't been, from a soybean standpoint, again, it hasn't penciled to send anything that way, and corn's found better outlets on truck and rail today.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. The next question, I believe, is going to be more geared toward you as well, because it's unit train related. So the question is any of the shift to unit train related to changes in the operating models by Class 1 railroads in regards to PSR, precision railroading?
Okay, run that by me again.
So is any of the shift to unit trains related to changes in operating models by Class 1 PSR?
I haven't actually heard that term. That sounds like a good reason, though. Again, everyone's trying to be more efficient. There's some what we've found is if you're a origin or even a destination that can't load or unload in a specific time, a set time frame. We've had some origins that have sat on cars for a week, and that just kills. I mean, in freight that we've run on our private sets, it kills your efficiency. The cost you're paying on a per month basis goes up per turn because you're getting 2 turns instead of 3 turns. And I can imagine if you're running the dispatch from a rail standpoint, it's got to make you want to tear your hair out if you're not running a good schedule. So the markets, the railroads are incenting origins and destinations to load and unload in a quick time frame, and those that can't generally see increased freight rates. So that kind of either they have to invest or find other ways to ship.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Keith, this next question is for you. So the question is, why did the city decide to get involved in railroading?
Well, it was, I would say, back in the 1980s when it occurred, that it was by default, in that it was a way in which to prevent the abandonment of the rail line at the time to serve our area. So the city and as a fiduciary, I believe, in the application to a grant for MDOT to purchase that section of railroad with the industrial clients in our area to be able to maintain rail access, freight rail access. So from an economic development standpoint, we wanted to, back in the 80s and even currently, want to be able to serve our current customers and our industries with the ability to ship via rail. And also we use it quite frequently when the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, sends out information or RFQs for new companies that are looking for, or through site selectors are looking for locations in which to expand. Freight is, depending on the nature of the industry, freight is often a requirement or at least an advantage. And so if you can show that you have freight access, then that keeps you competitive and eligible for the location of new industries to your area. So that's why we got into it, 30 plus years ago, and why we continue to facilitate it today.
Very good. Very, very good story that you have there. So the next question I have for you is Mr. Belger. This is for Arauco. Is would a rail service distribution facility in the Detroit area be of any value?
Yeah, I think it would be a value when we look at it from the standpoint, it takes additional time to get cars further north, and it has to, if we could speed up the car return, like other speakers here, we struggle with the length of time it takes to get a car out of here to our customer and get it returned. So having a DC somewhere in a more metropolitan area, yes, where I could possibly truck material there and ship it on rail at a higher volume, definitely has possibilities.
Very good. Thank you. The next question I have is for you, Chris. It's, do you prefer class ones over short lines or vice versa, and why?
It kind of depends on the business. For our business in Michigan, where I've had, most of my career managing the business has been involved with the short line. I feel like we've been able to get a lot of cool things accomplished. From an efficiency standpoint on the main lines at our other elevators, it seems like we're able to, you're running larger equipment. I think it was, if you mentioned that, Keith, if we're on main lines, typically you can run the heavier cars, sometimes nicer equipment, but there's merits to both. For our business, both have a lot of value for us.
Very good. We just got a new one that came in. It says, since many transportation planners are listening in today, as a rail shipper, what are the types of public-private partnerships, incentives that move the needle enough to ship by rail or convert more existing freight from truck to rail? So in essence, what can be done to help you convert some of that truck business more so to rail?
From my side, we go through this a lot with some of our programs down to Toledo, like if we're shipping wheat or soybeans. It's for me, it's just we have open conversations about what it costs us to ship by truck, and we try to give feedback to our railroad partners on what it takes, what the number is. Sometimes there's value, and if there's a truck shortage, there's a lot of value in having rail in the mix when we're looking at our shipping programs. Typically, we don't try to put all our eggs in one basket from a freight standpoint. And then we like feedback from the railroad, our railroad partners, as well as what they're seeing and what works on what they can make happen on their end.
Very good. Thanks, Chris. Mr. Belger, do you have any comments on that one from your side of things?
Yeah, I would agree with Chris. So when we look at it, it's definitely cost is king here, and we look at the cost aspect of it. I see the value, and we've moved significantly towards rail because our customer base, the load capacity, I can get more load capacity on there. Really, what I look at from the standpoint, and it is getting our customer, if they have rail opportunities, getting them to understand the value of rail service. Traditionally, they were somewhat opposed to rail. Now that we see a truck capacity, we're leaning more towards the rail side of the business. It's economics, purely economics, but I see a value from a personnel standpoint because I can actually ship more capacity via rail from a labor perspective than I can with truck.
Very good. All right, we've got time for one last question. And again, this one's for you, John. The question is 600 trucks per week is a lot. If more
Yep.
rail cars were added to your fleet, would you see some of those trucks come off of the road?
Most definitely. Most definitely. So I look at it, from the average, the way I figured, I can roughly load, and I load heavy haul trucks. So I'm loading B trains, and 8-axle equipment. So I have trucks leaving here at 100,000 pounds. So I can actually get 3 to 1, almost 3 truckloads into a rail car. And yes, that's what our current focus is to reduce the truck capacity and move to rail.
Okay, very good. Well, I believe that is all of the time that we have for our session today. We appreciate you all joining in. Certainly all of the contact information for each one of the speakers, I believe, has been shared with all of the attendees for this group. If there's any questions outside of the session alone, please feel free to reach out to myself or any of the speakers. We appreciate your time joining us today.
Okay, thanks everybody. So
Thanks,
that
everybody.
ends the
Thank you.
breakout session 2A. Thank you, Shasta, and our speakers. Another good session. We are getting towards the tail end of our day 1 of the Michigan Rail Virtual Conference. But obviously the highlight is still coming, which is Marty Opperman from STB. Many of you may know that there's a lot happening on the Surface Transportation Board. So we'll get to hear over the next hour what's going on there. So stick to our final session today, and yet again, quick holler for our sponsors for the conference to keep this affordable for everybody. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes for our keynote on Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.